Good afternoon to everybody. Do you hear me? On. Thank you. Good afternoon to everybody. It's a big pleasure for me to be here again to the green island of Jeju and to meet you and to have an exchange with you. It should be an exchange of ideas, of questions, of models, and not simply a lecture. And I would not like to simply to talk to you, to teach you, but really to learn also from you. Dear Director General, dear Ambassador Su, it's a big pleasure to see you again here, and I'm very glad to talk not only on bilateral relations, but mostly on how to address how countries in 2017, in 2018, in the next few years, can address the challenges of globalization. And I would like to start with a small overview. Let me see, I hope I... No, sorry. Yes, this is the kind of menu I propose you. I wouldn't like to be too long so that we have really time for interaction and for exchange, but Korea, Switzerland, how do we compare? What are the structures? What is globalization? Very shortly, there is a very positive side and there is a more problematic side. Perhaps we can discuss that. Why up to now Switzerland has benefited from globalization? What were the kind of recipes for success in Switzerland? What are the current challenges? And how can we address them? And at the end, I would very quickly like to invite you to a photographic journey through Switzerland in order to make you, as a kind of teaser, hoping that you would come and love to discover Switzerland. This is very easy. What is on your mind when you think about Korea? You know it better than me, but for a Swiss citizen, obviously, these are the things we think about, we know about Korea. We know that it's a highly successful, high-tech country with very global brands like Samsung, LG, SK, and many others. We know also that it's a highly respected country, but a divided country still. We know that the Korean Peninsula is facing some threats. But we know also that it's a very vibrant society, K-pop, K-music, K-films, and then obviously also traditional mode of living. You still are very keen on your traditions, and very rightly so, because it's a long and old tradition. If we move forward and if we see, no, that's the wrong one, sorry. What comes onto your mind when you hear Switzerland? And this is already the first interactive part. I would like to ask you, and please come in and tell what you imagine, and then we will see if you get together the different pieces of the puzzle. Who wants to say something? Chocolate. I hear chocolate. What else? Watches. Nice quality watches. Thank you. What else? Strong army. Okay. What else? Snow, winter, yes. Tourism, sports. Yodel song, yes. I'm not sure you like it. I'm not sure that, well, it can compete with K-pop. Heidi, yes. The story of a girl in the Alps, yes. What else? You have many... Sorry? Freitag, the brand that makes the bags. Kabang, Freitag Kabang. Is that right? Yes. Thank you very much. You have many positive things. You are not mentioning the other sides, but let's see. And I will show you quickly what we think is typical for Switzerland. But here you have it. Obviously, yes, winter sports, skiing. We are expecting many people to come, skiers to come to Korea very soon for Pyeongchang. Then you have also the fondue cheese. Switzerland is a country of cheese. You have beautiful landscapes, and yes, you have this kind of traditional folklore. But it's also a country where the best ambassador for Switzerland, is Roger, and thank you. And he doesn't need introduction. I think he is a very good sportsman. Then obviously also beautiful landscapes like the Matterhorn over there. A big banking sector. Also Switzerland is a finance center, which is very often positive, but has also some shadows, as you know. And I'm very happy that nobody said fiscal paradise or tax paradise, because sometimes it was like this also, and Switzerland was not always playing a very positive role. Switzerland is also one of the important countries where research is done, especially in health sciences, enterprises like Roche or Novartis, for instance. And then obviously also tourism. It's very nice to be. Is the picture really clear? It looks a little bit blurred from here. Is it okay for you? Can you see it okay? So, well, this is the kind of panorama of Switzerland. Traditional, but also very modern, also a very high-performing economy. And obviously a country with 4 national languages, a small country, but, well, we will go and see it. I would like to do a very quick statistical approach, in a comparative statistical approach, Switzerland-Korea. No. Yeah. So, well, you see it, I do not have to comment it. Both countries are obviously highly developed. Population-wise, we are 6 times smaller than you are. You have higher growth rates than we have, because also Switzerland is even more developed in a sense than Korea, and developed for a longer time. Switzerland started in the 19th century as a rather poor country also, and developed over the decades. What is interesting is that we are both very heavily relying on trade. Trade is important for you. We are export nations. We are also importing a lot. But I mean, both of us, we have an interest in free trade. And if some people want to say, well, our country first, and we have to protect our citizens, obviously this is hurting Korean interests, as it's hurting also Swiss interests. Unemployment rate rather low. In Korea even lower, although you have perhaps a little bit more of a problem of youth unemployment. But I mean, it's in very good conditions on both sides, I would say. What is interesting is the trade. The bilateral trade is rather unbalanced. And this has also to do with the fact that if you buy a Hyundai car in Switzerland or a Kia car, it would not be produced in Korea, it would be produced in Central Europe, in the Czech Republic or in the Slovak Republic. So Swiss people buy more Korean goods than it appears here. Goods, also flat screen TVs or mobile phones, obviously, they are not always produced in Korea, but perhaps in Vietnam and other places for Korean companies, whereas Swiss watches are always produced in Switzerland, and also the pharmaceutical sector is still producing a lot in Switzerland. And the most important export from Switzerland to Korea is pharmaceutical products, health products, medicine. Sorry, that is one too far. This is more on the society, how we are. We are very close together in life expectancies. We are aging societies, healthy societies. It's good to live in Korea. It's good to live in Switzerland. We have also a lot of educated people. Korea is emphasizing much more on university degrees. Switzerland is still also relying on apprenticeship, on kind of vocational training. Not everybody has to be a lawyer, a professor, or an engineer. We need also good electricians. We need also good carpenters. This is in Switzerland still rather popular. Also, blue-collar jobs are you see that. You have 70% of university degrees in Switzerland, is much lower. Suicide rate, that is interesting, perhaps a little less of pressure in Switzerland. I feel that in Korean society it's very competitive at school, in the enterprise, and you have obviously also your honor levels that are important. Switzerland, it's lower. The murder rate, criminality is very low in both countries, fortunately. In Switzerland, even though we have a big, after the US, Switzerland has the most of arms that are in private ownership, in families and all that. So, which is a little bit of a miracle in a way. Military budget, obviously, Switzerland is in the center of a peaceful Europe, and we can afford of having a rather low military budget. Only it's 7 times smaller or 8 times smaller than yours. You are in a very difficult environment, obviously, with the situation in the north, with the kind of escalation military. So you need certainly more, and you have a much bigger army size than we have. Switzerland can mobilize some other 100,000 people, but the whole army strength would be around 100,000 if we activate all the forces. When I was young, I remember very well when I had to do my military service in Switzerland, because it was also compulsory, and it still is. We have a conscription army. We could mobilize up to 600 people, but this 600,000 people, this was during the Cold War. But the Korean Peninsula, in a way, is, a reminder that the Cold War is not entirely finished. This is still a kind of, even if the regime in the north is not any longer a communist regime on ideological grounds, but it's still a confrontation from the Cold War period, and that is why you need a strong army and why you buy so many arms now also from the US. Globalization. We all know it exists. We love it or we hate it, it's there anyway, and it's a very powerful trend. And for many people, especially in emerging countries, it has been extremely beneficial. It has lifted millions of people in China out of poverty, in India, also in Latin America. But it becomes challenging, obviously, for more developed nations like yours and like Switzerland. But Korea probably is closer to that, because, I mean, you did such an amazing evolution in developing yourselves economically in the late 70s, 80s and 90s, and so you know very well about the benefits of global exchanges and being successful on global market, and Korea has done remarkably well. What are the advantages? What are the downsides? Let's see it. Obviously, we all benefit from globalization because it's so easy to send mails. It doesn't cost a thing. If you're on WhatsApp or other, you can phone all over the world with connected people for free. Trade has increased tremendously benefiting exchanges. Consumers get better products at cheaper prices. I still remember a time in Switzerland when you had to pay for a t-shirt. It was something like $80 to $100. And now you get it easily for $20 or $30 and even less sometimes, depending where you buy it. New technology is obviously, that is certainly something also. We have access, a world, I have grown up, and the gentleman in the first row grew up in a completely different environment. No computers. My first personal computer, I had it when I was writing my PhD at the end of the 80s or mid-80s it was. I remember my first, it was not a smartphone, but a mobile phone. I had it, I think, in 96. It's for younger people. You cannot imagine how the world was before this situation, and this is obviously something we all benefit a lot. And we have also more interdependencies. Yes, the world has become in a way a village, and we have more opportunities for cooperation, but we also have to accept more interdependencies and more influence from abroad. The negative side, or the more problematic side, would be that not everybody won out of globalization, although I think it's really a win-win scheme, basically. But there are countries losing out, I think, but also within the countries. There are some people who have not any longer jobs. To give you an example, Switzerland was very strong on textiles in the 19th century and in the first part of the 20th century. The textile industry has almost, I think, has been decreased in Switzerland by 80%. Only very high-tech textiles are still produced in Switzerland. All the rest went, well, to Vietnam, Bangladesh, Morocco, and many other countries. You cannot produce textiles in Switzerland. Doesn't make sense. Only the top textiles. If you have if you look at some textiles that are used for Chanel dresses, haute couture in Paris, well, they still come from Switzerland, but it's a very tiny segment, and only very qualified people can survive. Yes, manufacturing jobs are going down, but we increase in jobs in services in many ways. And the requirements, the training is more important. Research and development becomes very important because, yes, jobs are going to other places. Another thing is perhaps, yes, the increasing gap between poor and rich people. It's a phenomenon all over the world. I think that is something we have to address soon, and we have to see. And obviously then we have also all the question of materialism. What are the true values? We were discussing with the charming lady who was fetching me by car, and she knew about Bhutan, and said, well, in Bhutan it's not the gross domestic product in financial means, it's the gross happiness index. How happy are people? And you can be happy even with less of money, certainly, and other values. It's not only about material values. That is certainly also something we have to discuss. What are the reasons for Switzerland's success? And I would like to discuss that and hear your opinion also why Korea was so successful. I would first, being a public servant and talking to public servants, I would start with something that is really very topical in Switzerland, which is the administration. The public service is rather lean and frugal. We do not have a huge administration. We have it's small numbers, and we do well. They are well paid, certainly, but they have also to deliver, and we have a very flat hierarchy. It's very we do not have this kind of your approach more on Confucianism. Respect is important, but respect is probably less important, and the hierarchies are flatter, and sometimes the efficiency is probably higher. The other thing is direct democracy. We do not only have a parliament on the central state level, but also on the cantonal level and in the cities, but the citizens all the time are requested to vote. We had recently a proposal that came from the government for a reform for our social insurance system. The reform was discussed in government, it came to parliament. We have two chambers. We have the National Assembly like you have, the lower house, and we have the Senate, the Chamber of the Cantons. Long discussions, a lot of adaptations, and it was accepted by parliament. And then it had to be submitted to the people. And it was rejected flatly by the people. People were saying, no, we are not convinced. It's not a good idea. You did the wrong compromises. We want it, it's too much in favor for all the people. We have to protect the younger generation. You are financing the retirement schemes too much at the expense of younger people. So it was rejected. And this kind of closeness to the citizens can vote. This is on central state level, but also in a city. If a mayor says, well, we need a new museum, it costs 25 million US dollars. Well, do we really need that? In the end, it's always the citizens who decide. And citizens are very often very conservative. They say no to fancy expenses. They want really to get value for it. And so that is also something that is helping, I think, Switzerland. Flat hierarchies, as I said it also, we encourage critical thinking. I like to say also in my embassy, please tell me a good idea, a bad idea becomes not a good idea because the ambassador proposes it. The best idea will win, and the best idea, be critical, and let's see how we can mobilize all the brains of the people in the world. This administration is very fast and very citizen and not bureaucratic. I mean, we really try to ease things in a way. It's an open society. We have already 4 national languages. We have a huge percentage of foreigners living in Switzerland. A quarter of the people living in Switzerland don't have a Swiss passport. They were partly born in Switzerland. Switzerland always has been a very international country and an open society. We have a very liberal labour market. Unions are not very important in Switzerland. They do not have a big role, I would say. And the labor law is very liberal in a sense that it's easy to hire people and it's easy to fire people. We do not overprotect people. We think people find a good job on the market. It's important that enterprises are free. Switzerland doesn't have a minimum wage, for instance, but the wages are high, even though we do not have a minimal wage. Research and development is very important. You cannot build cars in Switzerland. You cannot, for obvious reasons, build ships in Switzerland. We are a landlocked country. You cannot do really very strong industrial applications, manufacturing. But you can do at a very high value in the value chain, you can do research and you can produce really expensive goods. To give you an example, Switzerland produces more or less 10% of all the watches in the world. When it comes to the numbers of watches, only 10%. Value-wise, it's 90%.
You mean by quantity?
By quantity, the numbers, it's 10%. When it comes to the value of all the sales, it's 90%. So which means that Swiss watches are Chinese watches. Chinese is the biggest producer of watches. India is very big producer of watches, but it's cheap watches. Switzerland came in the luxury segment and had to. You can only produce in Switzerland with Swiss salaries. You can only produce high quality luxury products for consumers, or really research products, very much knowledge based, for instance in health sciences, or also in mechanics. Machinery also is Switzerland's very good, nanotechnology. So research and development is very important, and this is one point we share with Korea. Both countries, we are spending more or less 3 to 4% of our GDP for research and development. That's a lot. And I think the only difference is in Switzerland it's more on the private side. I think it's 2/3 is private enterprises spending the money and only 1/3 is public money. In Korea it's more or less half-half. The state contribution is more important in Korea. And finally, what I mentioned already very quickly, the dual education system. People go to school, they do their primary school, their secondary school, and then they choose their profession. And more than half don't go for university, they go for apprenticeships. And it's a 4 years course. for being a carpenter, an electrician, for being an IT technician, for being a banker, for being an administrative clerk. All these persons go and do their apprenticeship in an enterprise, in a bank, at a carpenter shop, at an electrician shop, and they work 3 days a week in the shop, on the shop floor, and they do practical work, and for 2 days they go then in a higher, in a vocational school where they learn, foreign languages, correspondence, to write the letters for their quotations, to do accountants' work, so to do that, to understand how to make a business plan. And this is very important because in Switzerland we are very manual, or people tend to be down to earth and they do things. It's not that a certificate that is important, and Swiss people usually are rather critical. A doctor title doesn't impress them, or director titles are not very important. Important is what skill sets you have. What do you know in the end? Can you work? Can you easily find jobs on the labor market? And you find easily jobs even as a carpenter, even as a mason, and these jobs are well paid. You start an electrician after his apprenticeship, and during the apprenticeship he gets already money. But after 4 years he gets easily $4,000 per month. So these are not people who are disqualified, not respected. No, we think it is important, and skills are more important in Switzerland than certificates. The challenges we have, we share with Korea the challenge of a rapidly aging society. The birth rate in Switzerland is very close to the birth rate in Korea. In Switzerland it's 1.4, which means every woman in Switzerland has 1.4 or 1.3 kids, which is definitely under the reproduction rate. The reproduction rate is around 2.1. So the Swiss population is shrinking, and the Swiss population is aging. In 1990 there were more or less 10% of people over 65 years old. Now it's already 20% and increasing fast. Very similar to the situation you have in Korea. Deindustrialization is a little bit of a problem. Yes, traditional industries left. I mean, all the because it has been so cheap to import from other places. Steel industry in Switzerland, we had a steel industry. It's again only existing for very special steels, very high-level steels. For instance, for surgical blades, for surgery purposes, it's still doing very fine. But nobody would buy steel out of Switzerland for building ships or for building cars. This has been closed. So we had to shift in a way to more to other activities that are more at our level, and we had to find it. Migration is certainly something also that is perceived sometimes as threatening. Although Switzerland is a very open country with, as I said, out of our 8 million inhabitants, 2 million are foreigners. But sometimes migration is also a threat to lesser qualified Swiss people, because migrants accept the work at a lower wage, for instance. Sometimes it's also an identity stress. People feel threatened because they say, well, there are so many people and they are not exactly like we are. You must know that also in Korea. That is also a perceived threat. Perceived loss of identity. That is also something that is happening. A fear of loss of prosperity. Will our next generation or the second next generation still be very prosperous? I think also something that resonates with Korea. We have also a little bit of nationalist and sometimes populist parties who try to propose easy solutions. And terrorism, fortunately, we didn't have terrorist attack in Switzerland. But France is very close, Germany is very close, Spain is very close. So obviously nobody in Europe can pretend to be safe and outside of the reach of terrorism. And we are also facing the global threat of pollution, for instance. I will come back on that. Talking about that, I wanted to show you, I'm not sure you can see it, is the same glacier, a glacier in Switzerland, in the Bernese Oberland, near Grindelwald. It's called Rift Glacier. This is the picture of 1948. Sorry. This is the picture of this glacier in 1948. You see it stopped more or less here, and probably even earlier it would have come down here. This is the picture of 2002, I think. 2002. You see all this part, there is a lake now, there's a lake. There is a river, this part was all covered. It went down here. So it has receded over this, a bit less than 60 years by, I do not know, it's perhaps 800 meters or something like that. And this is 2002, and now look, 2016, it's last year, I do not see it, it's 16. Again, another 300 meter, 400 meter of melting of the glacier. And obviously, here we are, this must be something like 2,300, 2,400 meters perhaps above sea level. And over there, it's 3,000 meters. That will stay, but not only in the Arctic and in the Antarctic, glaciers are melting very quickly, also in the Alps. And this has a lot of incidents then also for people. You have landslides, more landslides. All this was on the permafrost. There is no land, obviously, and it was kind of frozen. Also, the very steep flanks of the mountains were frozen. Now, getting warmer, it all comes down. And we had recently a small village that has to be evacuated because there were millions of cubic meters falling down and threatening the villages. This is only one example. I think I have to speed up a little bit. And no, that is too fast. How can we overcome the problems and challenges we face? This is one of the bridges. I think it's a suspended bridge in Valais, again in the mountains, built for tourists. If you like walking and if you like to hike and to trek in Korea, you would also like to do that in Switzerland. The landscapes are even more spectacular, and you have this kind of huge installations where you can walk through. So a bridge is always a solution for a problem. How can we and how does Switzerland try to overcome the problems? The Swiss strategy for a lasting success rests on 6 pillars. The first pillar is to continue with an open and liberal labour market. Little protected employees because it worked well, and if people are well skilled and well trained, they find good jobs. And to ensure that the economy can quickly react and adapt. Switzerland is very fast in adapting and in understanding trends, and that is something that is helpful and that we need to overcome the challenges. Second pillar, offering vocational training on the one side and university training of a high quality and based on the needs of the labor market. Education must be in tune with the economy. What is going on, that helps a lot, and we want to continue that. And we want to continue to have smart, well-paid and well-respected blue-collar worker. We don't think that only diplomats, professors and lawyers are the people who deserve a good life. We want to maintain a favorable environment for research and development in Switzerland. This is something Swiss enterprises invest a lot, as I told you already. They invest into Switzerland, but also in the US. More than half of the investment in the US, in Asia, in the UK, in Germany, wherever, Swiss enterprises invest more in R&D outside Switzerland because Switzerland is so small than in Switzerland, and you need a good mix. And for instance, a Swiss enterprise, ABB, a big engineering company, has their global R&D center is not based in Switzerland, it's not based in Sweden, it's based in India. And these are new decisions they have. Bringing talents on board, attracting the right people is more and more important, and that is also one of the reasons why immigration is so vitally important for Switzerland. At Swiss universities, 60% of the professors are not Swiss professors. They come from the US, they come from UK, they come from Singapore, they come from China, they come from Korea, they come from all over the world. And they are attracted because the living conditions are good, the salaries are high, and they can do research in a very good and in an open environment. Students is more or less 40% students are from other countries and 60% from Switzerland. Fourth pillar, to ensure the immigration of professional fitting our needs, specialist researchers, managers, health personnel. We need, with a shrinking population, Switzerland needs immigration. And we need high quality immigration, professors, researchers, but we need also nurses. We need also perhaps cleaners. It's the mix that is important. People who take care of me getting older with a life expectancy. We need people, and that is certainly something that many of them come from abroad. The other pillar, fifth pillar, is the financial pillar. It's important to have a healthy situation of the state finances. Switzerland, like Korea, is not a highly indebted country. The state is very sound. The tax level is moderate. I wouldn't say it's a tax paradise, but you do not pay very high taxes in Switzerland in opposition to other countries. And that we want to keep, because this is also something that helps to attract enterprises and to attract also managers, professors, and all that. And sixth pillar, maintain the quality of our infrastructure. Infrastructure has to be modern. You know something about that. I'm highly impressed by KTX, by your airport and everything. It's running so smoothly. It's very modern. We want also to keep the political stability. It's important for us. And the quality of life. We want that Swiss people, enjoy their lives in Switzerland, but also foreigners to come, because this is an important part. It's easy to move around. Our cities are of human size. You can find nice flats, you can find nice houses, you can rent a house in the Alps if you want to ski. So this is certainly something that is important. So 6 pillars where we think that helps us to get prepared to confront new waves of globalization, because globalization will be ongoing. On the political side, for us, Europe is important, but not only Europe, but 60% of our import-exports are still with the European Union. Then the US is important, China is important, Japan is important, Korea is important, India is important, but still it's very interesting to see. Switzerland borders the land of Baden-Württemberg in Germany. This is the part where Mercedes-Benz, for instance, produces car. Porsche is there, and many other industries. Switzerland has more exchanges with Baden-Württemberg, which is only one province in Korean style, than with China. So you see, proximity still matters. And I know, obviously, for you also, China is highly important for Korea, and Korea is important for China, certainly. We have to use our network in international organizations. That is certainly also something important. We have to be partner with others, and in many ways Korea and Switzerland are very good partners in international organizations. Korea has a big advantage over Switzerland. You are a member of G20. Switzerland is not. You are the 11th biggest economy of the world. Switzerland is something in the early 20s, 21st, 23rd. But we would not qualify because Europe is already overrepresented, obviously. So international cooperation is important. Protection of the environment, we really mean it, and we try to work very hard on that, Korea too. And then obviously also building a society, an open society, a society that is fair, that gives good chances to people, and where even the poor are in a way protected. One of the instruments important for us, but also for Korea, is free trade. I think that is highly important for us. We want an open world market in order to be able to exchange. We must invest in R&D, very important. We have to keep the business location attractive. I had yesterday evening a dinner with some Korean entrepreneurs who have chosen Switzerland for R&D centers. Lausanne is implanting a small R&D center in Baden for huge diesel engines. And why Switzerland? Despite the high prices, because the talent is there. You have many other researchers in this field. Alstom is there, some others. They want to capture that. Something very similar, Hyundai Electrics does a small investment in the Zurich region. Why do they do that? Because ABB is there, and they want to have access, they want to see, and Swiss universities have a very good reputation. Out of 20, we have more or less 20 universities. 18 are in the top 500 and 6 are in the top 100 world universities according to the Times Education ranking. So investing in business attractivity is important, and infrastructure obviously. Let's quickly, after this this sketch, travel to Switzerland. I would very quickly allow you to have some pictures. We start in Zurich International Airport. The other international airport is in Geneva. Basel has also international airport. The whole distance from here to here is 300 kilometers, and from here to here it's 450. So it's 2.5 times smaller than Korea. Let's start with Zurich. Zurich is the banking capital. This is UBS, one of the leading world banks. This is Credit Suisse, another big bank. Switzerland is good in wealth management, in attracting wealthy people. This is also part of the problem, obviously. If the compliance rules are not always the right ones, but now we hope and we think that we managed to have a clean financial market. This is Lausanne, the lake in the middle of Switzerland, and this is a concert center where, for instance, the Lausanne International Music Festival takes place, and many other concerts. Interesting also, it's very open. This hall has been built by a French architect, Jean Nouvel, by a Swiss one. This is Basel, the hometown of pharmaceutical industry. This is the highest building in Switzerland. So Switzerland is, in comparison to Korea, very low buildings, but this is the highest building with roughly 180 meters. This is a tower for Roche, the health science enterprise, specialist on treatment for cancer. This is Roche, and this is River Rhine going to Germany. Basel is very close to both Germany and France. 5 kilometers from here, you're already in Germany. 5 kilometers from here, you're in France. Geneva, international organizations, the second important seat of the United Nations is in Geneva. The Palais des Nations, they call it, was built in the 1930s for the Société des Nations, which unfortunately was not able to avoid or to reject the idea of war in Europe in the 1930s. But Geneva is still important. Also the World Trade Organization, the World Labour Organization. International Labour Organization, many international organizations are in Geneva. Sorry. This is a very interesting building in Lausanne. This is a university campus, one of the best, I think the second best Swiss university in the 30s in the ranking is the Institute of Technology in Lausanne. And this is a building that was offered, this is sponsorship, this was offered by Rolex, the watch brand. Rolex was offering a learning center. And it was an architectural competition, and the Japanese architectural firm Sanaa from Tokyo won it, and it's a beautiful, beautiful building, a library, very interactive, very, very nicely done, on the shores of Lake Geneva. This is Zermatt, a very good ski station in Valais, this is the famous Matterhorn, Serva, 4,500 meters high, more or less. Very good skiing. You can go up with cable cars almost up to 4,000 meters. And Zermatt is 1,600 meters, so it makes very long slopes if you like to downhill ski. This is the biggest Swiss film festival, which is in Ticino, Locarno it's called, Festival di Locarno, which is in the Italian-speaking part. This is closer to Milan than to Zurich. So this is the Italian-speaking part, and they have in the evening, they have on Piazza Grande, how it's called, they have 20,000 people who can see the movie. And finally, Davos is an important venue for the World Economic Forum that was initiated by a German professor, again living in Geneva, but he was not Swiss, and that attracts many also Korean business persons and politicians. Again, in the Alps, 1,500 meters high, and you can ski up to 3,200. This is to show that we have also all the buildings. This is a Baroque library, a beautiful library in St. Gallen, in the eastern part of Switzerland, a building of the 17th century, of the 18th century, with a beautiful collection of old books and in a very good condition still. And I think that was the last picture. So thank you very much for your attention. I hope I was not too long. What can Switzerland learn from Korea? What can Korea learn from Switzerland? I would be very happy to engage with you on discussion and listen to your remarks and comments. Thank you very much.
네, 좋은 말씀 감사합니다. 혹시 발표해 주신 내용 관련해서 궁금하신 사항이나 질문 있으시면 질문을 한번 받아보도록 하겠습니다. 혹시 영어로 안 해도 되니까 잘 부탁드립니다.
Very good. Yes, very good.
As they ask
Yes.
in Korean, they will translate.
Who breaks the ice? Who starts? Don't be shy.
Did you say in the report of the university degree, then did you include the college degrees to them, or?
No, only university degrees. That's the reason why we have only. Switzerland has some 20 universities. It's a small number.
You have many good colleges, but why you didn't include?
Because I couldn't mention everything. Switzerland has very good hospitality schools also. Many Koreans train also in Swiss hospitality schools. There are some boarding schools also with very good schools and building networks. But this is extremely expensive. The boarding schools in Switzerland, it's very, very expensive.